welcome to Reality Tea Times 2, the podcast where we discuss all the trash reality TV we love to hate. I'm Tanika, and today we are going to be finally discussing the Ultimatum South Africa. So, I know I'm behind on HEA, so I haven't gotten that to you from last week. So, I will get that to you probably in this couple of days, day or two. And then we'll kind of be on track. I do have to get Livers and Liars out to you too. I feel like the show's done now, so I need to get that out to you. So I will do that. But other than that, we're just gonna jump in. We're not gonna do anything else on top of the episode. We're just gonna jump right in to the Ultimatum South Africa. Now these first few episodes are probably going to be short in terms of the coverage, or the recapping, I should say, but we are starting into, it's getting good. So let's get into it. So the Ultimatum South Africa season 1, episode 1, the split. So we have the couples coming in, and we are going to be I am going to be breaking down each of the couples as we kind of go through the episode. So we have our hosts, Hausa and Salamina, I believe is how you say her name, and they are a married couple, so that works. They have been married for 15 years, and he apparently issued her an ultimatum in the beginning of the relationship. It seemed like she was a little hesitant to get married, but, it worked out in the end for them, I guess. So let's get into the couples that we have. So we have, I believe, 5 couples. So we have Tavi and Genesis. She's the one who's issued the ultimatum. They have been together quite a long time. So by now, she's kind of saying, he should know whether or not he wants to marry me. I didn't catch how long they've been together, but I am going to say something at some point during, once we kind of meet everybody, kind of how I feel about the stakes and all that. But so they are both 27 years old. They met in college, and I find they're actually a very gorgeous couple. She thinks that he is scared to marry her. So in terms of the stakes, I did not, again, I think the biggest thing is catching how long they've been together, but they are only 27 years old. It's not like they're not too young. They're still not too old, Now's the perfect time to consider marriage, do all of that. So the fact that he doesn't seem to want to take that approach is interesting. But I think there's something that we do find out a little later about Genesis, and I'm like, maybe his maturity level isn't quite there yet. But anyways, let's meet our next couple. Kenya, who's 34, and Nakato, am I just calling him Kato? Just Kateko, Nikate. Okay, there we go. I'm sorry. Some of the names are going to be tough for me. But anyway, he's 30. They've been together for a year. He loves everything about her. She's the one who's issued the ultimatum. He doesn't feel comfortable enough to be off the market, which is an interesting thing to say, because I would think you may not necessarily be married, but you are in a relationship with this person, and it does make me think that maybe go, And again, I'm going to have my thoughts and my feelings, because I feel like there's a reason he feels this way, and I think it's more about her, but we'll get to it. So, in the middle of this meeting, everybody, tonight is the night, of course, that the couples are going to be splitting, right? As we know with the show. And the host, Hausa, gives us an old African proverb, which I wrote down because I thought this was actually a really interesting proverb. But he says, like the rain, love does not choose the grass to which to land on. And I thought that was actually really, really beautiful proverb. So that's why I wrote down Now, let's get back to meeting the couples. So we have, I wrote this definitely because I was still trying to get it used to everybody. We have Ruth and Isaac. Ruth is, sorry, I think they're both 28. Yes, they're both 28 years old, together for 2 years. She's the one who's issued the ultimatum. She hasn't met his family. Sometimes he doesn't answer text messages when she'll answer. I think they're kind of long distance. I'm not sure exactly where they both live, but I don't think they live near each other. So I think that's also brought tension into the relationship. She feels hidden and she doesn't know if he is with other people. Could he be? We don't know. He says you can't have like a woman at your house. Like he's trying to say, I can't have a woman in my family home. It would be disrespectful. And I think like he's saying that about her because they're not married. Also probably say that about other women because he's not married to them. If he were to be, I'm not saying he is, but it's, you don't necessarily have to, and I understand the culture is very different in Africa. Well, we'll say South Africa because the cultures can be different depending on the country you're in. So I totally understand that. But you can at least tell them you're dating somebody, you know what I mean? And if that's not what's happening, that's kind of problematic. But when they're kind of talking to each other, he tells her, he's like, you know what you don't do? You know what you don't do? You don't ask me how my day has gone, how was work? You don't do that. And I thought, yikes, my guy, now's the time for which you want to just put it all out there, which, yes, this is the time you put it all out there. But these, like, you could have told her this before, because now it kind of feels like you're throwing it in her face. And trust me, this is not the first time he does it. And it's just like, that's not cool. And she gets emotional when he says this to her because she's like, I don't mean to not be attentive to you or make you feel a certain way. Like, I don't mean to do those things. Like, I wish you would just tell me that. Like, in this way is just not the way to do it. Like, he's a little bit of an asshole. And I mean, maybe who he ends up with is probably the best person for him. But anyways, in terms of who his trial marriage is with. Next couple we meet is Lebo and Nola. He says, I'm a one woman man. And I've heard that before. Usually they're not. Lebo is 26 and Nola is 34. And they have been together for a year and a half. And she says that his communication is poor and he's a bit of a flirt. And that bothers her. And we're going to see that in a minute. He will call me my baby. Not great. So she is the one who has issued the ultimatum. Next couple. We meet Courtney, who's 27, Aiden, who's 29. The only white couple we have is a little different. It's kind of, I'm going to say this, it's kind of refreshing as a Black woman to see a show like The Ultimatum have mainly all Black couples. It's refreshing. It's nice to see. But anyways, so they have been together for 7 years. She's issued, and he says that he is scared of marriage. And he's like, what if we get a divorce? So it's definitely the fear of the unknown, the fear of the thing you can't control. So I think that's all the couples actually. Oh no, we do have another couple. So I'll save my thoughts until we get to the other couple. So Tabby and Genesis, before we meet the next couple, went out with a bang. Because the next morning now, they went out with a bang. She says, you act like you can't afford a marriage. Like you need to have all of your things in place before you do. And I felt so seen because this is my boyfriend too, from South Africa as well. And he's the same way where it's like everything needs to be in its place. Everything needs to be this perfect neat bow, and that doesn't exist. And now when it's like maybe things are a little even more hectic now than they were before. And, but I mean, I'm not issuing any ultimatums anytime soon, but I am like Courtney and Aiden, been with him for like 7 years and we're off and on or whatever. And it's, yeah. But let's meet our last couple. Linda Lay, who's 32, and Caesar Kelly, which I'll just continue calling her Caesar, who is 29. But first, I'm going to say this. They are a gorgeous couple. Linda Lay is gorgeous on his own. He is, oof. That's my type. And here's the issue. They've only been together for 6 months. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Let me continue. They were neighbors, and he approached her, and he mentioned that he wanted to get married after 3 months of them being together. So I think it's safe to say he is the one who's issued the ultimatum. Now here's what I'm going to say. Most of these couples, in terms of their ages, for the most part, there are definitely stakes in place. There's no one who's under the age of like 26. I think Lebo is the youngest one. She's 26. Everyone else is, above that. We have their oldest being like 34. So it's the ages, at least in this version versus the original version, is definitely better and definitely something I can get behind and be like, okay, like I'm here, because there are definitely stakes. Some of these people haven't been together for very long. Most of them haven't. We have like some people being together for a year. We have some people being together for a couple of years. Have other people being together for a year and a half. Like it's not like a crazy short amount of time, but it's still like a decent amount of time depending on the age that you're like, okay, let's do this thing. So in some respect, I'm like, it hasn't been long enough. Like give me the people who are in their 30s who've been with people for like 5 years. 4 or 5 years. Like I'm in. Like there are stakes involved, you know what I mean? That's what's kind of crazy with Courtney and Aiden. They have been together for 7 years. They're in their 30s. Those are the stakes that I'm interested in, you know? And then you have Linda Lay and Caesar who are like together for 6 months. And you're just like, wait, where are the stakes involved? You guys she probably hasn't even started farting in front of him yet. And you want to get married? I mean, it, kind of reminds me of, I can't remember his name, but there was a guy in the Young Famous and African show in the second season who wanted to have kids with like all the women around him. And it was like, wait. And so, yeah, no. Linda Lay is cute, but my God, no. But yeah, those are our couples. So let's kind of get into this. So the split is now in progress. Everyone has now split. We got 1 week before the choice, as we know. They are taking this split real serious, I find. So let's start the dating. We're going to do some speed dating. So Kenya, she says that she's an entrepreneur. She says, it all the time to all the men that talk to her. And she talks to Aiden and she's like, speed dating's a little exhausting. So she says to him, and he's like, oh shit, should I, like, what's going on here? And she says these guys are 6s and 7s when it comes to their communication. She's on about it. And this is kind of, I mean, I didn't have issue with her in this at this point, but this is kind of when you start seeing, about her. But yeah, then we kind of see Courtney talking to Niketo, and she's kind of feeling him. So Sisa, we kind of find out here, mentions that she doesn't want to have kids. And we are going to get into more in depth with that a little later on, but she mentioned just she doesn't think she wants to have kids. And she's like, I would get married like when I'm maybe 40 or 50. What? And I think she was talking to Isaac, because this was tough for me in the beginning to remember everybody's names without them having like their names pop up every 2 seconds. But now I remember it was Isaac she was talking to, and Isaac was just like, she looks like a dude. She looks like a dude. Like, I don't want to be involved in that. And as a woman, I took offense to this because, I mean, I'm not saying that getting married at 40 or 50 is the right thing to do, no matter your gender. But why can't she just be married later in life and it not be like equal to you acting like a dude? Like, I didn't like that. But again, I do want to say this part of it as well as, I don't want to say misogyny, but we are in a country, a continent of people where men act a certain way and women should act a certain way. And I do have to remind myself of that. But it just, what I also really kind of find also refreshing about this version, even though you know that a lot of these men seem to really respect these women. So it's except for Isaac. And they seem to, I'll get to it, but yeah. Anyway. So that bothered me. But anyways, we're 3 days before the choice. So we're going to go rollerblading. And we got people falling a lot. Like Ruth, I think she fell like, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. Courtney can see Genesis as one of those people that she could have potentially be a trial marriage with. So Lindley, he's an aspiring actor. We find out while he's talking to, I can't remember who he was talking to, but he was talking to somebody. So then when they're kind of all together, having a conversation together, we see Lindley and Caesar kind of having a conversation. So remember, they are each other's exes. And Lindley ends up telling Caesar, could you refrain from calling me baby? Because she calls him baby. He's like, could you refrain from that? Like, I feel like, since we're not technically together now, like, could you maybe just not do that? And you could tell it just broke her heart because she's like, it's hard to transition so quickly from being with a person to now not being with a person, going through this process and just not being free. Like, I can't imagine not being able to call my man baby is because we're doing something like this. You know what I mean? Like, that's weird. It's it's weirder for me to call him by his name, So it's just, I don't know. I found that kind of heartbreaking. I felt for her. I think she also tells him that she loves him, and he also kind of tells her to refrain from that too. So mean to her, but anyways. And I think it was her that said, so then I will forget you and date someone else, because clearly that's what you want. Well, that's what we're here for. And he is the one that issued. So, I don't know. But then she gets up and she leaves, so it's kind of that. Now we see them going dancing, which I think this was a different day. And yeah, to see everyone having fun and, but there is going to be drama, of course, so we'll get to it. But that was it for the first episode. So we're going to take a tiny break here and then we'll head into the second episode. So let's jump into the second episode called Now the Choice. So Lebo doesn't like seeing Nola flirting. But again, this is what you do. You're in this process. I know it's hard, but But then he comes over and sits beside her. But then she gets on his ass about not like filling up her glass. Like I think it was it Lebo or Ruth? It might have been Ruth actually. Now that I think about it, not Lebo. I think it was Ruth. So Ruth was having issue. Was it Ruth or Lebo? No, I think it was Lebo. I'm sorry. I'm getting confused. I believe it was Lebo. So yeah, Lebo was getting up in her feelings about it. And it's like, on the one hand, you're complaining that he's not showing you attention, or he's flirting with other people, which is just like, do you know what you're doing here? You know what I mean? On the other hand, he comes over and he sits beside you and you like, you piss him off for what? It's just, it wasn't necessary. Anyway, then we see Isaac and Ruth talking, which again, they're each other's exes as well, about how they're feeling. And what I noticed here with these couples is that the exes are talking to each other, checking in with each other in ways that you never saw in the original version or the queer version even. They're checking in with each other, which I thought, like, on one hand, it's like, that's interesting because I've just never used to seeing this before. But on the other hand, it's kind of sweet. It's nice. It's making, because again, like, you don't shut off that part of your brain that's been in love with this person and who you want to marry or whatever. You don't shut that off. So it was kind of nice to see them actually going and talking to them and checking in on them. So I thought that was great. There is one couple who doesn't do that, but we'll get to it. Then Lebo says, I feel like Nola is ignoring me and he wants me to hear his conversations. Girl, honey, he came over to talk to you. And instead of you actually talking to him like civilized people, you got on his ass for not filling up your glass after you were complaining that he was flirting. Like, I don't dislike Lebo, but I also am annoyed by her. But I'm just like, come on. Like, no. So, yeah, she feels disrespected. But again, you're the one who issued the ultimatum, so. But then there's an issue here. Because on one hand, I'm like, okay, Lebo, like, calm down. Like, you're doing the most right now. Until Noah does this. While he's talking to Ruth, he calls her sweetheart in front of Lebo, in front of everybody. But the thing is, it's too damn soon to be calling no one sweetheart. Okay, the trial marches have not started. Nothing has started. And you're here calling her sweetheart in front of your ex. And it's just like, ooh. Because Lebo calls him over and she's like, come here. Come here. The fuck you calling sweetheart? You know what I mean? Like, who the fuck? And he's like, well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. It's just a natural thing that came out of my mouth. So it's a natural thing for you to be calling. Listen. If my man's out here calling people sweetheart or anything else, me and you are going to have problems. I don't care. You know? I just don't. Even if it's strictly platonic, it's you being nice or whatever. I don't care. Don't be calling nobody sweetheart. Anyways, then Tabby is sulking because Genesis is the only one who hasn't gone over to talk to her. And she said as much. And, well, actually, I don't think she's actually said that to him. And then in the moment, he says that the reason he can't go over there and talk to her is because the emotions will come up and he will have to start the process of getting through this all over again. Which I wish he would have just maybe somehow verbalize that to her, whether it's before the split, whatever, verbalize that to her because she isn't dealing with the fact that everyone else around you guys are talking to their exes, and then you have the two of you who haven't. That would get to somebody, you know? So Tabby is crying at this point because she's just really emotional about him not talking to her, and it seems like all the guys are just coming up to her, comforting her, especially Aiden. He has kind of been really attentive to her in this moment. She does come back in, and Aiden comes back to her, and he gives her a drink. And Genesis is like, well, that didn't sit well with me that she gave her a drink. Motherfucker, you literally just said that you can't even go over there and talk to her. So now you're gonna get all up in your feelings because Aiden gave her a drink? Get the fuck over yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that this not, like, I mean, I'm here with what you have to say, with the fact that you don't want to go over there and talk to her because you don't want to reset your feelings and all that. I totally understand that. But then don't act a fool because someone else is giving her a drink. First of all, it's a fucking drink. Who gives a shit? But it's, come on. Genesis is an idiot. Anyway, so yeah, there's kind of that. So then Ruth's ex Isaac has to dip at this point because he can't handle how much she's talking to the guys. She's laughing. I can't remember exactly who she was talking to, but she's just like laughing with all of the men she's talked to, and it's really bothering him. And he questions, listen, if this is what you do in front of me, what the fuck do you do behind my back? Well, it's the process, you know? And I know I believe she's the one that issued, so, but again, it's just like, still the process, Isaac. Anyway. So it's the next day. We got one day to the choice, and Tabby and Linda paint. I think everyone paints at some point, but anyways, they're painting, but he's real focused on the painting, not really focused on having the conversation or looking at her. And she's like, hello, talk to me, focus on me. Meanwhile, we see the others going to like a different place, doing like dress up, taking pics, having fun. And Nola tells Ruth that I am your wine. I'm your wine. Because she loves wine, apparently. And she tells him she loves wine. He's like, I'm your wine. My God, my guy. Wait for that. Actually, I don't know who Nola picks again. But anyway, so continue. Kenya doesn't seem to be connecting with anyone. She seems to be over everyone at this point. Meanwhile, Aiden and Caesar are talking, and he says, I miss Courtney. And when he says like he misses Courtney, Caesar just starts, the waterworks just start. He's like, I miss Linda. I really miss Linda. And she misses him so fucking much that she just starts crying and dips. And it's like, okay, I do get like you missed your man. I get it. I would miss him too, girl. But it's like I totally get it. But it's like Aiden's in his feelings about missing Courtney, which he seems both him and Courtney seem to be really quiet people. So they're like, he's expressing, I miss my girlfriend of 7 fucking years. I miss her. And then you might really miss Linda. You know what I mean? Like, girl. Anyways. So now it's the morning of the choice. And again, what I thought about the morning of the choice, which was very different than any other iteration of the show, is that you kind of see them talking to their quote unquote potential before the actual choice. They just don't see kind of like putting in their I don't know, just I guess talking to the person, their potential, to see if that's like the one they want to be with. And it's just like, oh, okay. It was different. That was different. But anyways, so we kind of see people kind of doing that. I'm not going to talk about much there because there was not much there to talk about. But now's the choice. And we have our hosts here, Hausa and Sala. We'll call Sala because I can't remember it's part of her name, but we have them here. And singles are coming on in, and then we just kind of go over everyone's experiences and how we're all feeling. But it is here that Genesis tells Tabby how he was feeling at the cocktail party, the cocktail night when he wasn't talking to her. And that's kind of here he explains, listen, this is how I was feeling. This is like what I already said before. So, I mean, she still didn't take it great, but anyways. Then we have Isaac, who decides it's a great fucking idea to be a dick to his now ex-girlfriend by saying the following. He said, listen, I had great combos with everyone except my ex. What the fuck, you? You're an asshole. And that really bothered her because she's like, listen, the only reason he decided to mention me instead of just mentioning the people he interacted with is because he wants to fuck with me. He wants to manipulate me. And the thing is, if that is true, then Ruth, what are you doing with him? Like, you could do so much better than a guy like that. And honestly, who he ends up with for his trial marriages makes a lot of sense. But let's get to it. But let's move on to the choice. So, Ruth, who are you choosing? She chooses Nola, and she says that the only reason she ended up choosing Nola was to piss Isaac off because for some fucking reason, Isaac has issue with Nola. Probably because he knows Nola probably a better man for Ruth than he ever could be, and that bothers him. So because Isaac pissed her off, she decided to piss him off more and pick Nola. You know what? I'm here for it. So Nola ends up picking Ruth back. So there is our first match. Now, Courtney picks Genesis. And Nikatu thought that, he would be the one that was being picked by Courtney. But sees us like, oh shit, because she seemed to be connecting with Genesis, especially when they kind of did the painting and stuff like that. She didn't really be connecting with Genesis that day, so she thought maybe it would be her being picked by Genesis. And I thought for sure Genesis is picking Caesar. There's just no way, right? Then Genesis picks Courtney as well. Shocked. And that is our second couple, is the Genesis. Then Caesar is next, right after she's now kind of had this offhanded rejection from Genesis, and she just loses it. She just loses it. She's getting very emotional. She's crying. She's crying over Lindley. She's crying over the rejection from Genesis. She's just not doing good. She's not well, bitch. And she gets up and she walks away. So that's basically where we end off this episode 2. So we're going to take a final break. And when we come back, we will jump in with the final episode, which is episode 3. And I am back. So let's do the final episode for this episode, which is episode 3, New Bed, New Partner. So back to the choice. This is when I wrote Kenya as a bitch, because she is totally insensitive to Stacey's feelings. And she's like, why the fuck is she, it's fake, right? Like, she's being fake. Like, why is she crying for? And Tabby in this moment is sitting, so basically how the arrangement is it's Caesar, Kenya, and then and Tabby beside each other. So when Caesar left, Tabby ends up telling Kenya, go after her, go talk to her, go see if she's okay. And she's like, why? She's like, why would I do that? I don't even know if she was laughing or crying, but why would I do that? And Tabby was actually taken aback by this, but we're gonna it kind of comes back to her in a little bit. And when I wrote here, and I'm like, okay, but she says like she's being fake, she's doing this, she's doing that, and it's like, okay, you may feel that way for whatever reason. I don't know why you feel that way. I don't think you know a person enough in this experience, especially after a week, to constitute whether someone is being fake or not. However, she is still being insensitive. It wasn't cool. I'm not saying she needs to get up and go after her, but it was just insensitive the way she was acting. But I kind of realized maybe where the comments are coming from, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But Caesar does come back, and she ends up picking Nikato. Sorry, guys. Nikato. We're just going to say that, and we're going to deal with it. And I kind of love that she picks him because, as we know, that is Kenya's ex. So, Nikato feels he connected with Caesar and Tabby, but he does pick Caesar, which I was embarrassed because I'm like, you better fucking pick her. You better fucking pick her. Because if you don't pick her, she's going to cry again. You know what I mean? But Kenya's like, the coupling gives me fake vibes. Fake vibes, just fake vibes. Really? I'm going to save my thoughts for a minute. Not saying anything yet. Labo is next. And she picks Isaac. But Isaac says, listen, Labo, I like you. You're a great woman, but it's a no from me, dog. Okay. So yeah, he says no. So Isaac ends up picking Kenya. And I wrote, good luck, my guy. But anyways, let's go back to Labo. She picks Aiden. And Aiden says, yes, he accepts. And I wasn't expecting that, like, at all. Like, I don't remember seeing them talk to each other, but maybe that's just me. I missed something, but wasn't expecting it. But anyways, and Kenya literally says that the only person she connected with was Isaac. Everyone else just bored her, and everyone was like, Jesus. So obviously she picks Isaac. So now we only got Lindley and Tabby left by, default, I guess. But Genesis is like, oh no, this buff guy is going to be with my woman. Yes. Yes, he is. Lindley's hot. Anyways. So everyone is now entering their new places. We have all of our new couples. And Ruth mentions that her siblings don't know Isaac. And she assumes that none of his family knows about her, which we kind of know already from before. Caesar and Nikato are definitely getting really close in bed. So they're cuddly, whatever. It's the next morning, and everyone is getting to, just know each other, play some games. And I think it ended up being Nikato and Caesar who ends up playing Truth and Dare, not to be confused with Truth or Dare. And he asks her, so where's the craziest place you've had sex before? And she says, oh, I've had sex a lot of places, but man, if I could have to pick one, I'm going to say an airplane bathroom. So she has entered the Mile High Club. And he's like, oh. So then for his dare, he has to be a horse for 2 minutes and she rides on his back. And then he dares her to kiss him. And she does. So, not too scandalous, but Then we see Tabby and Lindley going to the gym, and my God. I'm sorry, this man is gorgeous. Yeah. So yeah, she says, going to the gym is his happy place. That's my man too. And she says that it's, weird for her, being in this trial marriage, but he tells her, your own happiness is important. If Genesis isn't quite doing that or needs improvement with that, you just do what you gotta do. And he does say that he is physically attracted to her. And so what's next? Showering together, maybe? I'd shower with him. Anyway, Genesis, we see, is cooking for Courtney, which is interesting. We kind of see him doing this very domesticated thing for Courtney, but what we'll kind of see later on is that maybe he doesn't typically do those things. Like he gets maybe a little lazy. Then Ruth and Noah, we see them talking over dinner. And I think Nola ends up asking like a question of like, who would you go to dinner with? Or she's asked the question, whoever it was. And he says, my mom, because I never knew her. And you're like, wait, what? And he says that she died when he was 3 years old. And not only that, but on his birthday. What fuck? Called trauma. Childhood trauma. That not only did you lose your mom at a young age and you barely know her, but then every day you turn older is the day you're reminded of your mother's death. Oh, God. But he says, let's lighten up the mood a little bit. I would also go to dinner with Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson. Same girl, same. I would also want to go to dinner with Michael Jackson. But her answer was boring. She was going to dinner with her friend or some shit. But anyways, then they go to bed and they're getting really close. And he asks, do you want me? And you're like, what? And then they're clearly having sex. They were. And the next day, it is confirmed they did have sex. It's day 2, y'all. It's day 2. Day 2. Maybe 3. And y'all already fucking. This show is incredible. This is what's different about this iteration too, is people are actually fucking in these trial marriages. I'm here for it all. Give me all the sex. It's great. Anyways, then we see some of the ladies meeting up after the fact. I think we had Kenya, Tabby, and Courtney. And it looks like Genesis doesn't do shit to help out. So he's a lazy fuck. And Tabby's like, tell me something I don't know. So Tabby says she's really happy because Lindley actually does stuff. Like he'll actually clean and take, because he lives alone, or he did anyways. I don't know if him and Caesar live together, but he at least was living alone at some point. So he's self-sufficient and he takes care of himself. And he'll actually like do things like clean and cook. And I'm like, yes, all things my man does, so he'll keep doing them, right? And it's like, that's refreshing for her because Genesis clearly doesn't do any of that shit. So she's very happy. And Courtney's like, oh, good for you. And then Kenya takes this opportunity to start talking shit about Caesar. How she's fake and, all of this. And she's like, I didn't know she was having a cry. They say all the same shit. And Tammy is like, oh, yeah, that's interesting because like when I said to go after her and talk to her, you were saying some weird stuff. But the great thing here is that both Tabby and Courtney are both like, where the fuck are you getting this from? Like they're not being rude. Like I'd be rude, but they're not being rude. They're just kind of being like, okay, your take is interesting because you don't feel the same. And this is kind of when I started to realize, I'm like, it has nothing to do with Caesar. It has everything to do with Niketo. That's what the issue is here. It's jealousy. She's fucking jealous because Caesar is with Niketo. But here's the thing. It's like, you issued the ultimatum. So don't be upset because the ultimatum is playing itself out. He was going to end up with somebody, whether it's her or someone else. So why are you upset? Like, you know what I mean? And don't make your jealousy the reason to talk shit about somebody. I don't like her. Anyways, then we see Caesar and Niketo talking about, kids and having kids. And as we know, she says that she doesn't want to have kids. But what was interesting here is she says that she doesn't know if she wants to have kids. And he does want to have kids, but maybe in like 7 years or so. And she also seems to be kind of living in a little bit in fear that, she got used to kind of being on her own, and maybe she doesn't want to subject children to the same fate she did, or whatever the case may be. He seems to be really patient about that with her. And then we see Kenya and Isaac. So we're kind of getting back and forth with Caesar, Niketo, and Kenya and Isaac. And they're going to dinner, Kenya and Isaac. And he says a little bit of where he comes from. Now, I don't know exactly where he's from, but based on like how he talks, I'm guessing he could be Nigerian, potentially could be Nigerian. Kind of like when, kind of when you hear kind of people from Nigeria kind of do like it's like this thing that he does that makes me think definitely Nigerian. But I could be wrong. He could have also mentioned where he was from before, but I definitely get the feeling of maybe even Cameroon. Those are kind of the places I'm thinking. But, so yeah. Yeah, so this is the place of this, a little bit of where he comes from, right? And Kenya does say here that she is attracted to him, and she wishes that she would have met him maybe even before Niketo. And I'm like, okay. Back to Niketo and Caesar now. She says that he has always been ready for, he says that he has always been ready for marriage, but just wants to be ready for the right person. Maybe Kenya's not the right person. And she does say to him, like, maybe you could be happy with Kenya. I mean, you never know. But he does feel like he could see a future with Caesar. I mean, it'd be very possible, But back to Kenya and Isaac now. They're back at the house now after dinner. And he's like, I have the surprise for her. I hope she really likes it. And when they get back to the house, there's rose petals on the floor, on the bed. She's loving it. She says she loves being spoiled. And then we see them kiss. And quite intensely, I might add. And I do wonder, do we have another couple who are about to do the deed? I don't know. I haven't watched the 4th episode yet, but I will. And we will talk about it. But that is the end of this episode. Episode 3. So far, so good with this. I'm here for it. I'm loving it. I love that people are fucking each other. It's great. And it's just very different than the other iterations, especially the straight version. Or the straight original version. The queer version, we had at least one couple. But this is great. So I'm here for it. I'm loving the black love of it all. I'm loving it too, and I'm here for it. But anyway, with the exception of coordinating, but I'm here for all of it. But that is it for this episode, and I will be back in your feeds with more shows, and potentially you might be getting Perfect Match sooner than I expected to. We'll see. But that is it for this episode. So if you like what you heard, please rate, review the podcast on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, don't forget that you can also share us with everyone in your life if you really love this. And I do want to read those reviews. I'm definitely getting 5-star ratings, but I want to read those reviews. So send me those reviews and I will read those 4 and 5-star reviews on the podcast. Also, we're on every one of your favorite podcast apps, every one of them, including you can find us on YouTube at Reality Tea Times 2. If you want to connect with us, you can do so by going to either Facebook or Instagram at Reality Tea Times 2. You can also find us on Twitter, TikTok, Reddit at Reality Tea Times 2 pod. We also have our email, which is at realityteatimes2 at hotmail.com. Definitely want to hear from you guys. And we also have our new website. where you can listen to all of these episodes. You can review the podcast on there as well. You can connect with me in any way, all the stuff. It's all there, and you can find me there at www.realityt times two, all spelled out, .podpage.io. It's there. And don't forget, I also have my other podcast with my friend Mikkel, Next Week Podcast, where we talk about all kinds of different topics. But you can find us on any of your favorite podcast apps over there as well. Or you can also go to YouTube, and you go to Next Take Podcast, as well as our website, which is solo.to/Next Take Podcast. So yeah, there's that, and that's basically that. And again, don't forget, if all of this information is overwhelming, we do have all of the links, everything in our show notes. But that is it for now, guys. Thanks. Bye.